Hello, and welcome back to Be Life. I'm Jennifer Gallardi, your host for today. Thanks for sticking around and joining us for episode 2. Today, we're going to get down to basics and talk about the building blocks of a well-rounded, healthy diet. I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Mark Larson to help us break it all down. Dr. Mark.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I can't wait to hear all the wisdom you're going to drop on us.
Well, hopefully it'll be wisdom.
We just want to get down to basics. Tell us about the building blocks of nutrition and food. There's 3 macronutrients, correct?
Right. In nutrition, of course, is a huge subject as it applies to food, but we're talking really about fats, proteins, and carbohydrates would be the 3 bigger categories.
So what do we need them for? What do proteins do for us?
Well, proteins, for a lot of people, they would say they are the most important. Of course, you have to have them all.
Right.
But proteins are involved in, for example, the making of muscles. But for hormones, it's probably the biggest issue right now. A lot of the backbone of proteins go into making of our hormones, which are essential.
Talk to us a little bit more about like proteins and muscle. What do they build? Do they build muscle, or do you just need them to help keep lean muscle mass? Or, you know,
Well,
is there one approach about proteins, or does it depend?
There is not really one approach. I mean, you can supplement proteins, which is very easy to do nowadays, but we usually think of having food. So there would be animal-based protein, meat. There's also would be nuts and seeds from the plant family, vegetarian or that direction, higher in protein as a source. And like beans, things like that, vegetarian also. But you could also have dairy, it tends to be higher in percentage. Like a lot of foods have everything in it. They have some fat, protein, and carbs, but they're kind of classified more or less on what's predominant.
Got it.
So proteins are predominantly meat, dairy, and seeds and nuts.
Well, here's like a hot topic too, that a lot of people, when someone tells them I'm vegan, they're like, well, how do you get your protein? So are the proteins found in, say, legumes and beans, or even some grains, are they not as good? Are the animal proteins superior, or, you know, what are we talking about?
Well, there really is no good or superior. There are 20 amino acids, which are the building blocks of the proteins.
Okay.
10 of those are essential, meaning the body cannot make those. It can make 10 of the 20. The others you have to ingest.
Got it.
So the reason someone might say meat would be superior is because meat tends to have all the essential amino acids. And if you're doing vegetarian, you can get all the essential amino acids, but you have to be more careful in getting them from different sources.
Okay.
So that's where that comes into. You can still do it, but it's harder to do.
Right, and I think it depends. Like everybody has a different make. I know that I can't sustain just on vegetarian protein alone, on vegan beans. I need some animal meat. I can feel it in my body, and we talk a little bit about this earlier, is this holistic approach, and that you know, everybody kind of needs different things.
Right, like I am really a holistic medical doctor, so I consider a lot more than the traditional education I've been given from medical school. So there are many aspects coming into an individual who says, I need to make sure I'm nutritionally adequate when I'm taking in, but you also have to go by if they want to be vegetarian, if it's okay for them to eat eggs, for example, or dairy products. It changes it completely in terms of what they can do.
Right.
So, but everyone needs to have all the amino acids, and they have to get them somewhere, even if you supplement them. It should be fairly easy to do today also.
Great. Well, let's move on to carbohydrates. Why not?
Why not? The carbohydrates get a lot of the blame today for people being overweight.
That's right. Everyone's saying, God, carbs bad. I'm like, no, carbs good.
Right. It's all good. I guess it's in moderation, quantity, and where you're coming from.
Right.
So, for example, sugar is a carbohydrate, a simple carbohydrate as compared to a complex one. But sugar is ingested so easily today, and everything has it. So you could say, I'm going to avoid sugar. You're still going to get sugar in something. You're going to get it.
Pick up a label, right? And it's in ketchup and the most random things you would think.
Food tastes better with the sugar in it,
and
usually.
It's cheaper.
It tends to be, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we want to. What kind of carbohydrates are maybe a better option?
I like, for myself and for most people, and I have to say most people because it can vary from person to person, is to eat basically low sugar, low glycemic index, low glycemic load type foods.
There's another buzzword.
Yeah.
Low glycemic.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, let's say different foods have a level of sugar in them, like a carrot, which tends to be a higher glycemic index, which means the sugar can hit you pretty quickly, but it doesn't have a lot of it in it, so its glycemic load is low, which is generally considered good. In most health studies, they like people to have low glycemic index foods, low glycemic load foods.
Doesn't spike our insulin, right, as quickly?
So if you have 5 potatoes, all starch, mostly starch, you're going to get a lot of glycemic load because there's a quantity there.
Right.
If you have 1 carrot, you're not going to get a lot of sugar, but it's going to maybe hit you a little quicker than a potato, for example.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think yesterday too, in that, when you get nutrients from real food as opposed to just sugar, you don't want, who wants to eat like 20 carrots? You have a couple and you're okay, right? There's not this overeating that happens with something that's just pure sugar, right? Like the sugar gets addictive, whereas if the carbohydrates come from vegetables or from root vegetables that maybe are a little higher on the glycemic index, a little bit, you don't tend to just stockpile vegetables.
I have found that people vary. Some come in,
Okay.
they're like hummingbirds. They got to have sugar all the time. And as soon as the sugar wears off, they don't feel good. So for them, might be a person who's eating sugar all the time. Usually if they go through a phase of coming on less sugar, they will adjust. They're not in that crisis situation of feeling like they need sugars.
Well, is that almost like an addiction though, right?
I would
Isn't like
say-
taking the crack away from the addicts?
It probably is for some people.
Yeah.
Now, I consider the number 1 toxin in the world today for most people in the Western culture sugar because of the quantity, only because of the quantity. It's
Exactly.
natural, you need it, but so many people are getting too much.
Yeah, that's a whole other story we can
It's
go
a long
into.
story.
Why, and it's a tangled web we weave with sugar. So let's move on because we do have some limited time.
Okay.
Fats.
Fats.
Good, bad. What's the skinny?
Same,
the fats.
well, the skinny and the fat. Okay, same thing. Different perspectives. So there are lots of medical studies on fats, sugars, and proteins. And I tell you, they don't all come in the same perspective. Some come in with different conclusions, for example. So in general, you have to have some fat. It's required for your brain. It's required for your nerves. You must have it. It's your cell membranes. You have to have fats. They're generally thinking that you need more omega-3 as compared to omega-6, 2 types of fat, but you need both. So I think they're still figuring it out, but you have to get fat. Again, you could say animal source tends to be more saturated, which some studies say saturated fat is bad for arteriosclerosis and stroke heart problems.
Right.
And plant products be more likely to be unsaturated or less saturated, and generally better. And that goes into another whole level of studies and how that works.
Again, I think it just goes back to this individuation thing. I don't have an issue with heart health in my family, right? That doesn't run in my family. So I'm not as concerned about cholesterol. Obviously, I watch it, I get the tests, but I don't need to be concerned, but somebody else might need to be concerned about it, right? And so there's this, who are you? Where do you come from? Where your weak spots, so to speak, where your Achilles heels as far as nutritionally and paying attention to the individual. I'm sure you know all about that.
Well, I don't
from
know
your
about all.
practice.
Say all is a big blessing.
I think you're
or
being
curse.
modest, but yeah.
But it definitely is individual. If someone has a tendency towards illness already, one has to factor that into what maybe would be best for their lifestyle, food-wise.
Right.
And then if you mentioned, vessel problems, because heart problems, stroke, well, then throwing the word inflammation in there, and as that may or may not apply to the food people are eating, big topic. It might be one of the more important topics. Yeah.
From, who kind of started that bandwagon was Dr. Mark Hyman, right? With that, didn't he have a big book on inflammation? A few people really made that a hot topic.
Yeah, he got known for that, and many other things. I'm sure he has, a vast, basis underneath him. But there were people before him too that were starting to say, "Hey, we need to look at this."
Yeah, it's a big deal, right?
It is. Well, if you want to live quality and quantity, then
Mm.
you're basically talking inflammation and heart and vessel stroke problems, and it relates very much to food.
And so, what are some foods that can reduce inflammation or that are more conducive to anti-inflammatory?
Well, my approach is not necessarily what you need to take, what you need to stop doing.
Ah, okay.
Some people might react to a certain product inflammation-wise, antibody-wise, and other people don't. So that's where it becomes more individual.
Okay. Are there ways to find that out? Are there tests we do, or?
Well, you might know clinically to say, hey, I get a rash, I get swelling at the eyes from eating a certain food. That's
Just experience.
Yeah, or you get
Yeah.
lots of gas or something that you're not digesting it properly. That might be a sign you're having an issue with that particular food. But there are companies now that are offering antibody tests and other kinds of tests to see if you are already making antibodies to certain foods. And I consider that actually a sports test, and like everyone should have it for the life, because it will put people on like clean fuel for your car. You wouldn't put dirty
Right.
fuel in your car, it wouldn't run as well and as long. Same thing with our bodies.
And why don't we consider that? Like I think I even said that yesterday. We buy a car and we're looking at maximum fuel efficiency and horsepower, and then we look at our bodies. We're like, yeah, I'll just toss anything
Right,
in there,
right.
And we don't think about what food is going to give me maximum efficiency, maximum energy, maximum health. We just need to start changing the conversation.
Well, as you know, our Western culture has been a little bit absent and devoid of basic health education,
Yeah.
and food certainly falls into that. I remember growing up with the 4 food groups. Well, that was really a very primitive start
Right.
on the subject.
Yeah.
So there's more to know if people want to know it.
Yeah.
If you can listen to your show or
Yes.
read books, there's many ways to get it if people are interested.
That's the thing. We have to start, I think, just having more of an investment in our own health. And there's a plethora of information out there, and just really be diligent about researching, and also talk to a professional, right?
Well, I would think so. Nutritionist.
Yeah.
Many people have expertise in these areas. And again, you won't find 2 people agree on absolutely everything.
True.
So you might want to look around a bit
Yeah.
and get your own conclusion.
Well, it's also chemistry too, like who you feel connected with and who you trust as a doctor, right? The trust factor.
Doctor or
comes into
anyone
it.
you're seeing, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Hydration, water.
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
Wow, okay. Do we have
Just
water?
talk
No,
about
we
water.
don't.
We
Okay,
have
yeah.
water,
We do
speaking
have
of.
water.
Yeah.
So water.
Well, we know it's important, but do we need as much as they're always saying, like a gallon of water? There's been, again, like you said, a wide variety
I think
of
they're
what's
overdoing
recommended.
it,
You
in
do.
short. I
Okay.
think they are overdoing it for most people. Let's say our body is like 60% water. Okay, fine, but that's only like a starting point. We need water. Everything functions in water. Our muscles, our bodies act like hydraulic systems. If you don't have enough water, you could be lightheaded or feel weak or low energy. So you have to have water, but then water was not a really big issue. You just said water 50 years ago, but now you have to talk about mineralized water. Has it been filtered water? Is it natural water? Is it contaminated? I mean, it's become an issue unto itself about hydration.
Right.
But in general, hydration, yeah, you want to be more hydrated than less.
Yeah.
That's going to be the easy answer.
Can you overdo water? I think there have been some people that say, oh, too much water, and you're just going to pee everything out, and it's not good. Can you really overhydrate?
You can die.
Really?
Let me cut to the chase. You can die from almost anything. It takes a lot. It takes a lot, but you can dilute yourself down so much with water, you could potentially die, especially if it was like a low mineral type of water.
Okay, interesting.
Because the term osmolality, our blood is a certain concentration
Oh,
of
right, the
particles.
ratio of water to plasma.
So if it gets too thin, one could potentially die from that, but you'd of course feel not right before that.
Yeah, there'd be some symptoms.
Hopefully
you
would know.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking with us.
Sure.
We are going to head on over to one of my favorite places, the kitchen. Yay! To talk to Chef Chuck Kowal. Hello, good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
All right, one of our favorite. Oh, yep, there we go. One of our favorite foods.
Yep. Farro.
Farro. Let's
Farro
do it.
is my favorite thing in the world.
Yes.
Farro is an ancient grain. It was around during the Roman Empire. It's grown pretty much everywhere now, but it's started in Italy, but you can pretty much get it in every place. There are 3 different kinds of farro, 3 different grain groups. The einkorn, the Essen, and the spelt. The kind we get here is the Essen, and it's available in 3 different styles. One is with the full bran. The hull is on it, and this is the best for nutrition. High degree of fiber, protein. We were talking about proteins before. A cup of cooked farro has 6 grams of protein, and that's
It's high for a grain.
it's high for a grain.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super satiating. It's delicious, and it's something that we should be putting in our diet regularly.
Okay. What a flavor profile. We were talking about that, right?
Yeah.
That's got that like rich, dense, nutty. It's a nice hearty
Yeah.
grain for fall. I think
is.
fall, winter grains, all that kind of stuff.
It is.
How do you like to prepare it?
There's a couple different ways. In Italy, there's a soup called zuppa di farro, and it's essentially barlotti beans and farro soup. In a future episode, we're going to talk about collagen and bone broths and stocks. My favorite way to make this is to use a collagen-rich base, a soup base, and use the farro and the beans. It's fabulous.
So simple,
So
right?
simple.
Soups are
So good.
amazing this time of year,
Yeah.
this winter, fall season where it's just you want warm, you want nurturing, right? Grounding, kind of talking about eating for the seasons, like what nature produces naturally and how we kind of
I think
flow
we're
with that.
sort of we're in tune. Our bodies are in tune with the seasons.
Exactly.
We know in the wintertime we need to add hearty ingredients to our diet to sustain ourselves through the cold months.
Right, right.
Yeah, like in the winter, a hot soup would be like the best, or
Yeah.
like an Ayurvedic approach too.
Yes,
Right.
very much.
And
I'm
it
all
feels
about that.
normal.
Yeah.
It feels normal to do that.
Sweet potatoes, anything
Right.
grounding because it's cold. You know,
Yeah.
you want to stay warm. But we also talked about even before you put it in the soup or cook it, we can sprout it, right?
We can sprout it.
Tell us about sprouting.
What I like to do is sprout. I sprout almost everything. I sprout garbanzo beans
Yeah.
before I cook them.
Why do we do that?
It changes the starch into sugar.
Okay.
Makes it a little bit more pleasing to the taste. The same thing with farro. It changes the chemical structure of the grain itself, makes it cook quicker. There are people there is a camp that says it kind of reduces the gluten, but I don't follow that. I don't follow that
Any
mentality.
Input,
I don't
any
have
input on
I don't-
sprouting?
Yeah,
I prefer sprouting. I think it's better, but I don't think it changes the gluten that
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Is it easier to digest though when you sprout? Usually it kind of breaks down, helps
I
break down the
personally
enzymes?
feel it does digest easier. For me personally, I haven't had tested a bunch of people or seen any kind of study on it, but that's my personal experience.
I agree.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's yours too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I just like the fact that it's quicker to cook. Usually
Yeah.
when I can go away all afternoon, come home, and it doesn't take as long to cook my beans or my grains.
Yeah. And the health benefits, it's high in zinc, high in iron, high in magnesium, vitamin B3, which is niacin. It's got all of those in spades.
It's a winner.
Yeah, it is a winner.
It is a winner.
It's more nutritious than brown rice, which is way more nutritious than white rice.
Right.
So to me, it's like the perfect grain.
Well, you can always tell. You can tell too by the color.
Yeah.
Right. It's denser. It just looks more nutrient
Yeah,
packed.
yeah, it's very nutrient rich.
Yeah. So it's a carbohydrate powerhouse, so to speak.
It is. It is. I also like to use it in place of arborio or carnaroli rice when I make risotto.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Does it still give you that creamy type
Absolutely.
of consistency?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
I would
great.
love that recipe.
It's
I'll
really
have to
good.
come see you.
Yeah, it's very good.
How would it compare to barley?
It's very similar. It has this kind of the same mouthfeel, but again, the nutritional aspects of farro are just off the charts. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? I'd be curious to know if any of you use these kind of grains for breakfast, because we always think oatmeal, right? It's just, the only thing I'm stuck with are cereal. But as far as a grain, a real singular grain, we always think oatmeal. But sometimes I've made breakfast with quinoa or wheat berries, or can you use farro for like a
Absolutely.
breakfast dish?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. What would you throw in there?
Actually, on the
Talk
table
to the
here,
chef.
actually here on the table,
Yeah.
there's a grain mixture. It's quinoa, beluga lentils, and farro.
Wow.
And I serve this all day at the restaurant
Okay. As a side or
as a main course.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
as a vegetarian dish?
Yes.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
you.
We're going to take all this carbohydrate-rich, dense, nutrient food. And we're going to bring in Jamar, who is not only a fitness trainer, but also an RD, a registered dietitian. So come on in here. So nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
No
Let's have a
problem.
seat. Let's
Okay.
chat about
You
this
do.
a little bit because you've got such a great knowledge of food and how it can fuel our workouts, right? So this bridge and how they work together instead of thinking of them separately. Talk to us about carbohydrates and fuel and working out.
Well, yeah, well, you basically said it. Carbohydrates is our fuel when it comes to working out. Our muscles have carbohydrates or stored as glycogen, which helps us with a lot of endurance exercise, running, triathlons, long distance swimming.
Okay.
Helps us maintain the activity for a longer period of time.
Okay.
So,
Do you have any
plays a huge part.
favorite carbohydrates pre-training, pre-workout?
you know what helps a lot? A lot of people, a lot of my clients, just eating a banana.
Yeah, it's kind of the
It's like a nutrient-packed little fruit.
okay.
It's great.
And for those of us, I know I'm probably in the minority. For those of us that don't like bananas, is there anything else?
You can play around. I mean, you can have like a half a sandwich. You can have toast.
Okay.
It just depends. But you know, you're not starving before an activity. Nobody does that.
Right, right.
The main objective is to make sure you're having some carbs. I'm not saying go eat a plate of pasta
Right.
right before your activity.
Actually, talk to us about that because I have heard some people say, no, it's better to exercise on an empty stomach.
You can if you can actually do it.
Right.
I mean, people will pass out.
And what would be the benefits of doing that, though?
So you're going to hit that aerobic type zone a lot faster.
Okay.
Because there's no glycogen already in the muscles. I mean, there's glycogen in the muscles, but the more of it's going to be expended a lot faster. So you're going to hit that fat zone a lot faster.
So is it better maybe if your goal of working out is to lose weight, would that maybe be the better recommendation
Oh, yeah,
to
definitely.
start out a little on empty because then
Definitely,
you're going to
yeah.
burn the stored fuel,
And if that's
right?
too tough, if you go into an exercise and you haven't had a meal yet, maybe a little snack. You know, you're not putting all the carbs and calories and sugars right before the meal, but you're just having a little bit to sustain. I mean, just the Joe Schmo, we're not training for marathons, right?
Right.
We're not training 2-3 hours a day. You know, the
Right.
most, the average is what, 60 minutes, 40
Right,
minutes?
right.
And just a little snack will sustain you.
Right. How about post-workout?
Post-workout, there's a big kick about protein and
Yeah.
post-workout for a lot of the bodybuilders. What you want to make sure is that you're getting your intake throughout the day. Timing plays a part to some extent, but to make a significant difference, it doesn't matter. As long as you're getting your nutrition throughout the day, your body's going to utilize it.
Yeah. I would find that right after like a tough workout, like a cycling class, if I didn't have something within a half hour or an hour, my nutritionist said you can't wait 2 hours later because what would happen is I get hangry.
Yeah.
And I do start to I get anxious and I get really irritable.
Yeah, and you can feel the difference too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna want to eat because you broke down your muscles and your body's just looking for things to help rebuild it, right?
Got it.
Whether it's protein, carbs, whatever, fat.
Yeah.
So it's always a good idea to eat, and eventually you will eat. I mean, if we eat regularly with our 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and your workouts in between, you're gonna eat, right? Okay, we're not working during lunch.
I have so many questions. I have so
You
many
know?
questions. I want to ask you about how both of you, how really important is breakfast? Again, I think this is another Western concept because I come from an Ayurvedic approach and their biggest meal is in the middle of the day. Eat a light breakfast, something that just burns quickly just to get you till even 11:30 or noon. And then you don't want to have this huge meal before you go to bed because then you won't get to digest thoughts and emotions and everything else, right? And then it just doesn't work with our Western lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the 2 cups of coffee in the morning probably isn't too natural if you think about it.
No.
If you go back to the history of mankind, you get up in the morning, you probably didn't live by the water, you have to walk to get some water, it was safer.
Right.
The most likely food would have been like berries, something easy to get, vegetarian. If you got an animal killed, it probably didn't happen until a little bit later in the day. So I think that slow approach would be most historical.
Yeah.
But God knows where we're at now in terms of how our culture
does things, right?
Yeah.
It's individualized.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
everyone's, you know, whether they work different hours, it can't keep, I mean, they don't eat breakfast, or they're just not used to eating breakfast growing up, you know.
Yeah.
I wake up starving.
Do you?
I dream about breakfast. So the first thing I do after I use the restroom
I was going to say,
is
what's the
eat.
first thing you do?
Yeah, I have kids, and I feed myself before I feed the kids in the morning.
Oh,
that's,
my goodness.
That's my routine.
I'm never hungry in the morning. So
No?
I'd be the
I
opposite.
can't. I actually don't feel like I can
No?
put anything in my belly. I'm trying to get out of the habit of eating late at night, like making sure that last piece of chocolate goes
Yeah.
down maybe by 8:30,
Yeah.
because you're supposed to sleep Ayurvedically. There's these times, these cycles of the day, and your digestive fire in your belly is highest between 10 to 2, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. But if at night you've got a full belly, that at night is also when we process thoughts, emotions, like we were talking about. And if you've got a full belly, first of all, you're not going to sleep well, right?
Yeah, you'll be uncomfortable.
Oh, it's so
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, we could be here for days. And I know you want to show us a little bit of physical activity.
Yeah.
And warm
Show
us
a
up.
little warm up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Typically, you know, obviously you want to warm up the body whenever you do long distance activities, running, swimming.
Yeah.
So I'll show you a couple things that, you know, get the blood flowing.
Okay.
Works out most of the full body to help you going. And the
Something we could just do in the morning even to it's
to-
before those two
just
cups
to wake
of
up,
coffee.
just to wake up your body, you know,
Yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah.
blood flowing.
Yeah.
The first one is called a sumo squat leg pulse. So basically what you're going to do is you're just going to squat down and leg pulse. 2 seconds. Yeah.
1, 2.
Squat down, leg pulse.
Ooh,
yeah.
and heels.
Yeah,
No
and
less.
you'll feel it. You'll feel it. I mean, you're squatting, you're feeling your legs, your
My
calves,
core.
your core muscles.
balance.
So you do that each leg, one side 12 and the other side
Wait, we got to
12.
even out the other side.
Okay.
So just a couple
Squat.
here at least.
Pulse.
Pulse.
Squat down.
He's got the
Pulse.
ballet squat. You got the
There
full
you go.
on. He's got
There
the
you go.
full turnout.
Yeah, so both sides 12.
Okay.
And then the other one, which you can do, is it's the one-legged clap. Now, if you can't balance with one leg, you can modify it and just do a squat. But let's do the
I'm
one
sorry, I
leg.
just want to clarify. You said the one-legged clap,
One
right?
leg clap. So your
okay.
hands up, clap.
Okay.
There you go. Hands up, clap. Now, for some, the balancing is the issue, right? So you
Right.
can just modify it and do the squat, leg up, clap.
Okay.
Squat,
Squat.
leg, clap.
I alternated legs.
And then you alternate the legs. So each side you'll do 12. And again, with this, you're working out, you're moving your muscles in your legs, your calves, your core muscles are being stabilized as well too.
Yeah.
So another full body. The next one we'll do the pirouette crunch.
Ooh, pirouette. I love
So
the sound of that.
Down. Oh wait, sorry. Down and then come up with
Okay.
a crunch.
By the way, that's not a pirouette.
Oh wait, it's a
That's
what is it? I'm
a
getting
plie.
I'm not sure what to call it.
Curtsy squat.
Curtsy. That's what it is.
I was going to
curtsy.
say pirouette. We're going to
Yeah.
be turning.
Yeah, no pirouette. No pirouette. So a
Something
curtsy
bigger.
squat.
Curtsy squat.
Up, crunch.
You just happened to talk
Down.
to two ballerinas. Unfortunately, I
that's
have
what
no room to
confused
do
me.
that.
Yeah, and then you just alternate the other side. Same deal.
Mark,
I'll
Down.
let you do it. So
Down. Yeah. And with
Feels
this, the same
eternal,
thing.
though.
I mean, you're definitely working out. You're moving the bloods in your muscles in your legs, and your core and your back. So this last exercise is the plank, a slight version of plank. It's Superman or an airplane plank. So basically, we're
Is
just
it
going to go.
easier than a regular plank? Because
No, we're adding it.
Oh, you're making it harder. Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you're getting down as a plank, and then you're gonna mimic the airplane side.
Oh, I could do that. We could do that. We
he's-
can all do
he's
that.
on the
We can at
floor.
least do the
Alternate.
horizontal.
Down, over. And so you're just gonna alternate 12 on each side.
And what is this good for?
This is your core. This is your basic core workout, back workout, and abs. So
Yeah,
just
good
get
for
ready
shoulder,
for your
right?
run.
This
Oh,
feels
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
On the shoulder to open up, to kind of
But
combat.
When you're down in a plank, it's a
Yeah,
little bit
it's a-
different.
What are you talking about?
This
This is
motion
great.
standing
This
up
is
is
so
a little bit
easy.
different
This
than when
is
you're down on the plank. So let's not cheat it.
Let's not cheat it. Okay, well, we learned everything today. We did fitness, we did food, we did nutrition. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun with you guys. Chuck, come on over. This is so great. Thank you for showing us all the amazing ways to cook farro. Thank you so much for joining us today. We enjoyed going over the basics with you. Remember, you are what you eat. We all look forward to bringing you more of the latest news and information on health, beauty, and wellness. If you have any questions or comments, or to get all the juicy bits, find us on social media. Like us and follow us. Of course, we want to be liked and followed, right, guys? I'm Jennifer. Stay tuned for next week's episode. We'll chat about different nutritional strategies and specifically the latest, greatest craze, keto. Until then, be well, be now, be healthy, be life. Thanks, guys.
Hi.
Up high, crushed it.